All right, so we're going to do a beginner Jiyu Waza drill, okay? And this one is Uke's coming in with Katata Dori. And then you do whatever technique you want, okay? There's no counters or anything like that. No variation in the attack, okay? The reason for Jiyu Waza is different at the beginning level from the reason for Kihon Waza. Your art follows an ancient, I don't want to say philosophy, I don't want to say religion, because those are all tainted today. But let's say an ancient wisdom that is a matter of reconciling what we perceive to be dichotomies. So you have, for example, yin and yang, aiki and kokyu, irimi and tenkan, mind and body, the martial and the spiritual. And you also have Kihon and Jiyu Waza. This wisdom tradition is pan-cultural, and it is observed throughout history across the globe. But the one that is particular, or the one that is at the genealogical forefront of Aikido's wisdom tradition, is yin-yang theory. Yin-yang. Behind the yin and the yang is a singularity. That's the Tao. What you are trying to do, what is set up conceptually in this engagement with dichotomy, is to reconcile them so that in a way they cease functioning. And when they cease functioning, the Tao will arise. So another dichotomy we have is your first mind and your second mind, or the ego tripartite and the God consciousness. What you're trying to do is bring a cessation to the functioning of the ego tripartite, the first mind aspect, precisely because its nature is to experience the world and thus the art dichotomously. So when you're doing Jiyu Waza, one of the things that you're trying to do, as you're trying to do throughout your art, is stop the functioning of the ego tripartite, stop the functioning of the first mind aspect, allowing the God consciousness to manifest. There are some very common ways that the first mind manifest in your Jiyu Waza training and prevent you from tapping into the second mind. Contestation. What you're going to do more commonly than not is push back on your uke. So even though the attack is prescribed, there's going to be enough human variation that it won't go exactly as you planned. And you end up pushing, contesting, yang-yang clashing with your uke. This is the first mind. That's what it does. And then a second most common way is especially once you become frustrated with that first mistake, is to start picking techniques ahead of time before uke comes in. I'm going to do this one. Okay, this is an attachment to form, which is what the first mind does. It attaches to things. And again, there's going to be enough human variation in the ukemi that sooner or later you're going to be making the first mistake as a result of the second mistake. Meaning you're going to pick your technique beforehand, but the way uke came in, that one is now just contesting their energy. So you want to look for those two areas in your training, okay? I don't want to pick techniques, and I don't want to create or generate a yang-yang clash contest with my uke, okay? What you can also do here is stay playful. Just like when we were rolling yesterday. Don't try to win. You don't win Jiyu Waza. You either are in your first mind or you're in your second mind, so to speak. There's no prize. So as you stay playful, I recommend getting into trouble, okay? This is the opposite of trying to pick a technique beforehand. You're trying to stay out of trouble. Get yourself in weird situations, okay? And then you'll see from the second mind, the weirdness goes away. Everything's perfect, okay? So let's try this, okay? Looking for these things. So if I tell you you're contesting uke, or I tell you you're picking the technique beforehand, you know what we're doing. You know which mind is functioning, okay? And then the solution, stay playful, get into trouble, okay? Now that said, you don't want to milk the drill. So you don't want 50,000 turns. Dude, this is also a very common thing. So you know you're not supposed to contest, you know you're not supposed to pick the technique, and now you're doing like 2, 3 tenkan. Like, this is not martial, this is not realistic, this is too much milking of the drill, of the limitations put on uke. Do you understand? Okay, so you can't be turning. No. And you cannot give back or allow uke to gain back their balance. That's not it either, okay? And one thing you can do to make it even more live is, no matter who the uke, only the really good uke is going to just stay present with the yin-yang energy as you're responding to them. The afraid uke, the uke who him or herself is functioning for the ego tripartite, will try to identify your technique because they're attached to form. They will try to pre-identify your technique so they can now take the ukemi that they want to take. Idibinage, back break fall, do you see it? And you should be able to feel their intention, do you see? And allow or work with their disengaging energy to keep them engaged so they don't fall where they want to fall. Do you understand? You should not let your uke fall where they want to fall. You can make their fear-based intention, their ego tripartite functioning, become part of your live training environment by going, you're not falling here, you're falling over here, okay? And the way you can tell that is you'll sense the surprise in them. They'll take an inhale, they'll hold their breath, their eyes will bulge. They don't fall so well, okay? And so toward that end, I recommend that you go slow. Don't go fast. Just train slow. Speed has nothing to do with the first or the second mind aspect, whether we access it or not, okay? All right, so let's try this drill then. Do you feel your mind thinking, recognizing certain things? Ooh, that, oh, this, oh, that. Whether it be, oh, Ikkyo, or, oh, Shiho Naga didn't work, or you see that? You're identifying. This is all first mind. These are all ego tripartite, okay? Once you understand the delusion of Kihon and Jiyu, the dichotomy there is no Ikkyo. So there is no non-Ikkyo. So there is no Ikkyo that didn't happen. So there's no new thing I have to do. There's no sequence. This is followed by that. But that thinking is not part of it. This is first mind training. Okay, you already know first mind. First mind's dominating the world nowadays. You were raised in the first mind, with the first mind, by the first mind. You must enter a different state. That thinking is not part of it. So those thoughts you were told in your Zazen training, and the thoughts are going to be coming in because the first mind is going to keep functioning, do you see? And what are you told? Release the thought, release the thought, release the thought, release the thought. But here you're not. You're trying to use it to calculate what to do. It doesn't work. So if you pay attention, something is showing up. The uke is stopping. Do you see? You stop. Movement stops. It's not fluid because the mind is not fluid, because the first mind can never be fluid. It's always staccato-like. As you get fettered or captured, then you gotta let go, and then a new one, and let go, and a new one. Like it starts and stops, and so your movement starts and stops. And so uke starts and stops. Do you see? And so there's great moments where uke is just standing there. They're not continually traversing the mat. They're not continually being brought or kept into kazushi. You see? And again, that's milking the drill. That can't happen in real life. Okay? So, if you catch yourself thinking, identifying any of those functionings of the intellect, just release it right away. Don't try to use it. And pay attention, is uke moving? Or have they stopped? Okay? This is also a cue, a symptom of the first mind, so you can use it to identify where you're at. Okay? Try it again. Okay. Some technical things. You're going slower, do you see? So there's less inertia, there's less momentum, and additionally, your uke does not know what you're going to do. So even here, because the ego tripartite functions through fear and self-preservation and reification, your uke, even in this dojo, takes little dives here and there in Kihon Waza training, do you see? And so they can't do it now because they can't identify which technique you're going to do you see? Which meant the technique worked the way you were doing it in Kihon because they were just taking themselves off balance, do you see? Well, now you've slowed down, so there's less energy, and now your uke doesn't know where to go, so they're not going to take the dive. So you have to do a fuller range of motion. So, for example, I'm watching your kaiten. You're too high. You're never gaining vertical control of the head neck area. So they're not off balance. You have their head at waist level. That's a 3-point stance. Now you stopped. Man, you can't get more stable than that. Do you see? So you have to use more of the vertical plane at this low level of inertia. So you're going to have to work your glutes. You're going to have to bend your knees. Stop being lazy. Okay? Let's try it. Okay, when you do Jiyu Waza, you're not trying to do Kihon Wazas. You're not trying to pick a form. Do you see? You don't pick a form, okay? You're just working with energy now, not with construct. Okay? So, you don't do the ikkyo, nikkyo, sankyo, katagatame pins. Do you see? Those are all kokyuho endings, ritual endings in Kihon Waza. You don't do those in Jiyu Waza because uke is just responding to the energy, the yin and yang of your technique. And you don't have complete control over their body in those pins. So they should continue to keep moving. Do you understand that? So you would have to use one of the other pins that you've used that are actual pins. Okay? Does that make sense? So I don't want to see you go down and do one of the Kihon pins because your uke is just lying there. They should be able to keep moving. Okay? So that means if you want them there, you have to do one of the other pins. Okay? Going on from this last one. So you heard me say fuller range of motion, but did you feel the acceleration come on? Okay? That is a form of contestation. What you want to do instead is let's give a mathematical perspective to it. So here's the uke's upright posture, and they're gonna go to a 90, okay? So every one of these degrees, you can start manipulating it as you move it around into the kazushi patterns, either the front inward or the back outward, so to speak, okay? As opposed to you go straight down and now you gotta try to accelerate them, do you see? If you blend incrementally with each one of those, you can get the body tilt that takes them into the kazushi patterns, and you don't have to accelerate them. Okay, so look for this change in your tempo, okay, in your technique. That too is a sign that you're functioning from the first mind, okay? Because the first mind can't make those adjustments like that. It cannot function at the speed of light. It understands beginning, middle, end. That's about it, okay? Really just beginning to end, okay? So let's try it again and not have to speed up, okay? In fact, you can go quite slow and still keep uke moving, still get them into a kazushi without letting them regain all that kind of stuff, because you just keep adjusting each one of those degrees into the kazushi patterns. Okay, let's try it again. So tell me if this is not true. When you have only access to the first mind, the Aikido you do is first mind Aikido. The Aikido will not give you access to the second mind. And first mind Aikido is a contradiction, it's oxymoronic. There's only really Aikido from the second mind. So the techniques are not the vehicle for the cessation of the first mind. The first mind will do what it always does. It will take the technique and you'll experience it through the first mind. You push on what's pushing on you. You intellectualize, you fetter, you stop. You accelerate, you force. It'll never not do that. Something to think about. You have, let's say you're doing Zen and you have Zazen. And in a way, Zazen is almost like Jiyu Waza. You can't really do Zazen until you can tap into the second mind. Zazen's almost like a spot check. Can you do second mind or not? Where you really cultivate it is where first mind is not allowed to function. So in your regimented day, in your strict senpai-kohai relationship, in your vow-based devotion to the abbot, in your work, in your dietary prescriptions, if you look at the Buddhist canon, you have the sutras, the words of the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha. Then you have a philosophical canon, commentaries and things like this. But then you have a monastic code. And when you compare the size of them, the Buddha's words, the philosophical commentaries, which is what most of the West is drawn to, pale in comparison to the size of the monastic code. Why? Because it's in that code that the true catalytic energy necessary for self-transformation, necessary for learning the skill of releasing the sensation of the first mind, it's in the code. It's not in the thing where you need the second mind. It's not in that thing. That's just a spot check. You're not going to learn how to bring a cessation to the first mind aspect in Jiyu Waza because there's really no penalty for it. You just aren't doing Aikido. So you really have to raise up the other dojo practices. You're not taking them for what they truly are. They look in your mind secondary, the way a Westerner looks to the Vinaya and goes, oh, the main part is the Buddha's teachings or the philosophical commentaries. And you're like, someone goes, well, why is this, if those are the main parts, why is this other part so much bigger than these other two parts? Do you see? Why is it Westerner after Westerner can go to all these meditation retreats, etc., but can't even live a week under a monastic rule? Why are there certified yoga instructors vandalizing the electric pumps and I get called to, right, to deal with her vandalism? You see? Put her under a real guru, and she could not make it. Because the law of the ego tripartite is allowed to continue to function in doing poses in a studio under a guru, no, cannot function. Ceases to function. Okay? So same thing here. We have a Vinaya. You have to take it much more seriously. We have a guru relationship. You have to take it much more seriously. As seriously as you take it and as much as you engage in it, that is how much cultivation you're doing in the skill of releasing.